Thank you so much. Very good afternoon, Annapurna. First of all, thank you for being here. Such a pleasure to have
Thank
you.
you so much.
Wonderful to see strong female leaders in the sector as well. So, to our audience, I know we've already had a wonderful session so far, some great speakers, great sessions. We promised to keep the momentum high, so let's dive into it right away. And yes, as you've heard, this session is all about understanding how AI is tapping into truly every level of the value chain in the aviation sector. And who better to talk us through this than truly one of the giants in this space? So, Annapurna, just to begin, can you start with a bit of context setting to help us understand how exactly is Airbus's digital footprint panning out here in India? How is it linked to your global strategies as well, of course? And what role is AI playing in all of this?
So, good afternoon, everybody. I have the privilege of having a post lunch session, so I hope we can keep the energies high. Aviation, of course, is one of the most interesting industries, right? And AI, and just to set context in terms of how we operate and how we are structured, we have a large team that is based out of India, and we have a team that works in absolute tandem with the global counterparts. And so, in every aspect of digital technology for aviation in Airbus, be it the design of an aircraft or the tools that are needed for the design of an aircraft, to the tools that are needed, even from a customer service standpoint, we have teams that are based in Bangalore that help build all of this. So we are fundamental to the entire journey of the of aviation in Airbus. When you look at it from a demographic, we are 1/3 of all of the IT people in Airbus, and so when you're 1/3, you obviously bring in that amount of scale or that amount of contribution to building technology at Airbus. Now, in terms of AI specifically, it's a very interesting play. Um, we have teams in India which build AI and which pioneer AI. And so, over the last couple of months, we've also had very specific initiatives where we call it Jigyasa to give it an Indian touch. But the idea for Jigyasa is teams around the world came together, be it from engineering, be it from customer services or digital, to see that how can we systematically start introducing AI into the Airbus world in a controlled and measured manner. And so we provide that sandpit where people start building, and what we build is now being curated carefully in a restrained manner towards something that goes into all of our products.
Absolutely, and as you said, the carefulness of the curation is truly key here, right? I would imagine that in such a highly regulated space like aircraft manufacturing, keeping in mind governance, policies, and truly equipping your teams to integrate all the new innovations is really key. So, can you tell us a little bit about this? What is the secret sauce at Airbus? How do you create that intersection between all the innovations, whatever your digital team is already doing and what AI has to offer today?
Absolutely. In the aviation industry, and especially where we are in that whole aviation spectrum, we build aircraft. And that is an activity that probably needs the most amount of attention, most amount of care, and literally no margin of error. And that is the context in which we operate. And we understand this context, and we understand that, innovation and responsibility in a company like Airbus is absolutely hand in hand. One step forward with innovation, it has to be accompanied by a step forward with responsibility. And so, even as we started the journey of embracing AI, the first thing that came into place was a policy on the responsible use of AI. And so it starts at multiple levels, right? You have the policy, you have the implementation and the governance, you have the fundamental thought process in people. So the policy was formed. We have a steering committee that evaluates the responsible use of AI and evaluates to say that whether we are being careful when we bring in AI into any of the operations of Airbus. It is then followed by ethics and design going hand in hand. And that's again an important aspect because in a world such as ours, we have engineers who do the thinking, and they use AI along to enhance their thinking. And when that happens, the engineer has to understand that you have to be ethical at a design level. It cannot be an afterthought. It has to be at the root. And of course, after that we have steerings, we manage the risk, and that's how we productize AI in very careful steps.
So just to give us all an idea of what are the kind of timelines we're looking at, because again, in manufacturing is a very different process, as we were discussing previously, if you are looking at customer experience or a more front-facing role when it comes to application of AI. So with all these innovations we are looking at, what kind of timelines realistically works in a sector such as yours?
You've got to understand the context of aviation, right? So when we build a product, it flies for 50 to 60 years. So some of the products that you see flying today were thought of 60 years ago, or were thought of potentially even before that. And so you have to take that in that context. And so the foray into AI, it starts off with where it helps us build better. So it starts off in all of the places where it helps employees do their job better. From an IT standpoint, it starts off where it helps us migrate better. It helps migration from data technologies to newer one easier. And there's also another side where we have an immense amount of data. And with that data, we also have the ability to analyze our sensor information, our flight statistics, and there are a lot of products that come that we can use to serve our partners and our airlines, to say that this is how the data is telling us, and this is what you can do with it. So on both of those ends, where we are talking data, it can be a much faster time to life. But when it comes to manufacturing and when it comes to product design, there has to be a cautiousness to it. And it has to be step by step with validations, and it has to follow the timelines that we use for engineering a new aircraft, and it cannot be faster or slower than that.
Truly, how fascinating. Again, as you've said, 50 to 60 years in the making potentially could be how long it takes for an innovation to come to life in aircraft manufacturing. Wonderful. So, again, coming back to our theme, one of the key focus areas is operational excellence, right? So again, what would it mean then for a company like Airbus to really make sure that how AI touches every aspect of the value chain process ultimately equals to operational excellence? What does that operational excellence mean for you?
And so, like I said, right, we are we're the makers of an aircraft. And when we are the makers, operational excellence, it is in making the aircraft. And so if I look at it from three different dimensions, right, if I look at it from the dimension of data, intelligence, and people, these three have to come together for us to be able to show operational excellence. Like I was saying earlier, we have ample amount of data, right? We've got years of flying information. We have years of design information. We have years of, the supply chain information on how our aircraft built. And so there's absolutely a treasure trove of data. Now, the second part, which is the intelligence. If you see folks in aviation, they're some of the most passionate people who love flight, who love flying. They will know, the minutest detail of why is a wingtip a certain way. You'll have absolutely a lot of passionate people, but we also recognize that a lot of intelligence lies in the minds of these passionate people. So how do we take that intelligence to be able to, systematically build technology around it? And how do we really scale that intelligence? And that's the second layer. And the third layer is people. And in industry like ours, AI cannot work devoid of people. So, pun intended, humans are the pilots in aviation. And in humans being the pilot, there is that cautious moving forward to make sure that what we are bringing into our ecosystem is safe. It's built in a manner that does not introduce any unnecessary instability, even in consumable apps. And so that's the way, for us, we see operational excellence, and that's the way we operationalize it.
Do you see, again, as humans, of course, will remain the core, especially in a sector such as this? Do you see the role evolving, though? Do you see AI really coming in and changing the way everyone from the engineering team, we are talking about design, of course, all forms of governance and policy? Do you see the human element also evolving?
It will, but I think some areas will evolve faster than the other. So maybe, for example, creating a separate line of services which is anchored around data will go much faster. On the other hand, if we have to touch engineering and design of an aircraft, it'll be in partnership. It'll always be in partnership. Now, the partnership, as the technology matures, the partnership may sway in one side versus the other, but it'll always be a partnership.
Co-pilot situation, if I may
pun
say
intended
so.
again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Annapurna. Really interesting. I mean, such a different perspective, truly, to understand such a critical space, something like you said, an industry where there's no margin for error whatsoever, and what it means to have AI interventions there. If we slowly have to sum up, what do you think, in your opinion, is going to be the future of the aviation industry in the age of AI? How would it look?
Well, I think AI can add a lot of value to an industry such as ours, but it has to complement human ingenuity. It initially, for sure, will play the role of, will play a supporting cast role for human intelligence and for human understanding of safety, understanding of design. And it has to be measured steps. And we have to slowly walk that path in a manner that we're genuinely comfortable. And, the reality for us is also we are a heavily regulated industry. So there is the responsibility of safety, and there is the responsibility of regulation and being compliant across geographies. And so we are going to lean on AI very heavily to help us with computations, but it has to be in a measured way.
It's truly fascinating, because this journey of adhering to regulations is, of course, not only for your industry, actually. So it's quite relevant, I think, to so many people in the room, probably from medical backgrounds and so on. We have just about a minute on the clock. So if there's any question, we can open for a quick question from the audience before we wrap up. It's been truly a very different session this afternoon. If there's any question, you can just raise your hand quickly. We'll get a mic across. I think we have quite clearly addressed the entire topic. So truly, Annapurna, thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Devina.
Thank you.